Boys and girls of SEA's 7th and 8th grade science class. He may not have a hair on his head, but he has a plan. A lesson plan. Mr. C.
Well, happy Thursday to you all. And some of you have doubted that it was possible for me to grow hair. Now remember, in science, everything is data, conclusions. So you get data, evidence, and then you make conclusions. Well, data, so conclusion. Anyway, it looks like you've got your do nows going. Way to go. And the usual do nows. Assignment book's out. Homework in assignment book. And your homework tonight is triple R for your test on Friday. Tomorrow. Journal's out, of course. I've got my Binocs today, or Binocs, as granddaughter Alice calls them, because I can see the weekend from here. It's not that far away. So, and we're happy about that. Now, just a reminder, because I have the Binocs, that if you've got Binocs or a telescope in the southern sky, high in the southern sky, Jupiter is still available. I know we've had many cloudy nights after cloudy nights. And we've had kind of a haze over the valley. Now there's a fire out by Roosevelt Lake. So I don't know if that smoke is getting blown in or what. But here in Mesa, where the bunker is, we've got quite a bit of haze the last 2 or 3 days. But anyway, when the night sky becomes clear, have a look for Jupiter, just because you can. And you're looking for the Galilean moons. You're looking for little pinpoints of light very close to Jupiter. Remember, Jupiter is the third brightest object in the night sky. The moon, of course, number 1. Venus, number 2. And then Jupiter. Now I'm going to pay 5 points each for this. I'm going to pay 5 points for you looking at Jupiter with binoculars or a telescope, not just with your eyeballs. So you're going to have a look, and if you do that and you see Galilean moons, I want you to write on your own piece of paper, on your own piece of paper, write name, date, and period, upper right-hand corner. I saw Jupiter, parent signature on that, along with your signature, or initials, that's fine. So, upper right-hand corner, name, first and last name, date, period, print it, please, and then your parent's initials, that'd be fine, and your initials down at the bottom, your promise to be in the Lord that you actually saw it. If you see some Galilean moons, then further information, I saw 1, 2, 3, 4, lucky you, Galilean moons, and that'll be an additional 5 points. Anytime in the next couple of weeks, turn it into the basket on your own. Hope you get to see it. It is so cool when you see Jupiter, and if you've got a telescope that's got a bit of magnification, you might even see the gas bands. And of course, it's exciting when you see the Galilean moons. Hey, Mr. C, are you going to tell us what's on our first science test tomorrow? You betcha, as they say in Minnesota. Yeah, sure, in a little bit. But first, it gives me great pleasure to introduce our guest speaker of the day, who's going to give you some very helpful information. Of course, you're going to put the key ideas in your journal. So journals are at the ready to go. Now, she went a very long way to make this presentation. I think 30, 40 feet maybe? 40 feet, maybe, perhaps. And this person went to a very famous middle school, high school. Some of you have heard of it. The letters are S-C-A, Scottsdale Christian Academy. Some of you have heard of it. Anyway, that's where she went to, graduated high school from there. Why does it seem like I've known her for a very long time? Well, anyway, I'd like to introduce you to Laura Johnson. Thanks, Laura, for coming in and sharing with us today.
This is Your Magnificent Brain, Learning with Laura. I'm Laura Johnson, youngest daughter of Mr. C, and also my experience is in educational psychology. I have a master's of education in human relations, which is just a really odd way of saying how human beings interact, how they learn, how they connect with information. So my purpose in this space is to help give you information I wish I had when I was in school about how God made your magnificent brain, the different ways in which we learn, some ideas and tips for studying, some useful things about how to use our brains and the way they work to understand information. So, since I know that it's week 2 and probably there are some tests on the horizon, I thought what I would open up by doing is talking about some study tips, some different things that can be useful in your test preparation. So first, I want to explain how I see information and how I see it being saved in the brain. So I visualize that kind of neural information by seeing basically pathways to information. The information's there, but whether or not we can retrieve it is basically due to how strong the pathway to it is. The stronger the connection to the information, the more likely we will be able to access it in a testing situation. So, because that's the case, I wanted to give you some study tips to help create stronger connections to information. One of the things that Mr. C talks about is RRR, review, review, review. And I definitely agree with him on that. Reviewing information multiple times is a great way to remember it. But I'm going to say that how we review it is also very important, and making sure that we dynamically review information in different ways creates different connections to the information and helps in the likelihood of whether or not we're able to recall it. So one of the things I wanted to talk about first is actually note-taking. I know that probably your teachers have said that note-taking is important and encourage you to take notes, but I'm going to tell you why. I think that note-taking is so effective and important because it's actually very efficient. You're already in the class, and basically you're taking in the information auditorily. You are breaking it down into your brain, boiling it down to the key concepts, taking that information from your brain to your hand, to your pen, as you write them down. That means that you've already dealt with the information really in 3 different ways. You've heard it, you've thought about it, you've broken it down to the key concepts, and you are using your hand to get it onto the page. Often you're also rereading over what it is you wrote, so you're also seeing it again and it's being reinforced in your brain. That's very effective. It also means that you'll engage more in the lecture. As you're working to see what the key components are of the lecture, you're going to be listening in, you're going to be leaning in, and that's very important as well. As part of that as well, usually teachers, either when they're first giving the lecture or at the end of the lecture or at a review of the information, they're giving you cues. What are the important pieces of information to remember? What is going to be on the test? What are those definitions that you need to know? As they're doing those cues, you can go through into your notes, you can highlight, you can put asterisks, you can put symbols beside it that say, know this. And as you go back through it, when you're preparing for a test, you can see that and make sure that you go through those very key and important pieces of information. In addition to taking notes, it's important to study outside of the classroom as well to make sure that you'll remember it. I mentioned reading over it as you're taking your notes. I would recommend at a later time, usually closer to either the night after the lecture or closer to when the test is, rereading over those notes again and rereading some of that out loud. Because hearing yourself share the information can be another way that your brain is saving the information and connecting to it in your mind, creating those strong connections. I also recommend visualizing the information. If it's a concept, if that can be visualized. For instance, I know Mr. C's teaching about clouds. If you visualize the type of cloud and in your mind say the definition, or out loud say the definition, you're engaging many different parts of your brain so that you're gaining really additional connections to that information. Drawing is also another great way of doing that. So as you see the clouds, draw a picture of those on your page and write the definition beside it. Doing those, even if they're just little sketches, you're more likely to remember that visualization. Things that basically take information, save it in many different forms, you're more likely to recall during a test. Also, reread through your notes. Say them out loud. Cover the information both from a visualization standpoint, reading and saying it out loud. I also wanted to, in addition to study tips, and these are just a few ways of studying. I will be giving more at a later time. And also, you can find your own. There's lots of information out there. And it's possible that these wouldn't be effective for you, but that there are other ways of doing it that are. I hope this information has been helpful. I'm looking forward to speaking to you throughout the year. And my dad has told me that he will be doing a review session in the next part of the lecture. So my recommendation to you is get out your notebook. Take good, solid notes. Anything that he is bringing up on this is likely to be on the quiz, so review it. Go over it. Reread it before you go to bed. All of those things will be helpful in taking the test.
Now, I'm going to go over very quickly the test information. You've already got this in your journal. I've gone over it twice. So here it is again. It's going to be on RenWeb. So I'm going to give you answers quickly. So John 1, 1-3, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. 4 meanings. I'm going to ask you for several of these meanings that pop out of John 1, 1-3. Jesus is called the Word because he's the communication of God. He's the expression of God. He reveals what God is like. So it says, I think it's John 1:18, no man has seen God at any time. The only begotten God, referring to Jesus, he has explained him. Words explain. So Jesus explained what God was like by coming to the earth, living on it for 33 years, and then teaching for 3 years. And when you saw Jesus, wouldn't it have been amazing to see Jesus? When you saw Jesus, if you lived in his time, you were looking at God. Boy, that would have been amazing. Anyway, Jesus is called the Word. He was with the Father from the beginning, so he's eternal, actually before the beginning. So he was with the Father, an additional thought, a third thought, and then he made everything. He spoke everything into existence out of nothing. I guess we could apply off of that. He's obviously incredibly amazing, very incredibly powerful. Speaks the universe into existence, every atom in it, every object in it, out of nothing. Pretty amazing. Okay, Arizona's weather patterns. I'm going to ask you for the 2 rainy periods, December to March. From the Pacific Ocean, jet stream blows water, moisture from the Pacific Ocean. And then July to September, we're in it right now, moisture coming from the Gulf of Mexico. When it comes, it hasn't come that much this summer. The word monsoon, which means wind-driven rain. Meteorology is going to be in there. The science of the atmosphere or the science of weather. Ology, study of, like biology, study of living things. Zoology, study of animals. The word cycle, which means an event that happens over and over and over again. Which cycle? The water cycle. Water is lifted up from the ocean, and then it's cooled, condenses, and then it's blown somewhere by the jet stream, in this case over Arizona, and then it falls as the water droplets get heavy or the snowflakes get heavy. It falls as precipitation, melts in the spring and runs off into the lakes and eventually into the oceans, gets back into the oceans, and the cycle is complete. And then again, water cycle, ongoing, keeps going, water cycle. So I'll ask you cycle and water cycle. So evaporation, 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 condensation, 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 jet stream or wind from the Gulf blows the moisture over Arizona. Precipitation, precipitation, precipitation in the form of rain, snow, hail, sleet falls on Arizona. By the way, which major kind of precip is it that gives us most of our water in the lakes? I asked that yesterday, I think, and it's let it snow, let it snow, let it snow. Snow, which melts in the spring and then runs off. So, snow. And 4 kinds of clouds: cumulus, cirrus, cirrus, cirrus up way high, stratus, layered clouds, and then cumulonimbus, from which we get violent weather, lightning, heavy rain, tornadoes, perhaps, dérochés that I talked to you about, if that's the way you pronounce it. So that happened in Iowa a few weeks ago. So anyway, those 4 cloud types. I may ask which one produces really violent weather, and you're going to say cumulonimbus, of course. Okay, I'm going to ask you about the storage lakes. Got a photo up right now of the storage lakes, and you can see all of them. These are the SRP lakes. The SRP lakes. So I want you to write SRP Lakes. It stands for Salt River Project. The Salt River Project is the company or organization that manages our water in our lakes. Salt River Project, aka SRP, Salt River Project. So the water is stored in those Salt River Project lakes. The Salt River comes down from, I'm pointing to the east, eastern Arizona, northeastern Arizona, and the snow that falls in the White Mountains and on the Mogollon Rim melts and runs into the Salt River, and then it runs into the lakes and is stored. And then the Verde River goes straight north and starts up above Prescott and that water runs into Bartlett Lake and then into the valley. So those are our storage lakes. Bartlett Lake on the Verde River, and then the Salt River Lakes. There's a bunch of them. You can see all of them on that map. I think they're probably all listed there, or at least the Salt River Lakes. So, and there are a bunch of them. And of course, the biggest one is Roosevelt Lake. And Roosevelt Lake is as big as all the other lakes combined. It holds, I think, more water than all the other lakes hold combined. I'm going to ask you about water conservation, saving water, ways to save water, several ways. Quick showers, water on, water off really quick, and turn off dripping faucets. I'm going to ask you about the characteristics of good goals, which you dealt with already. Specific, these should be in your journal. Short. I didn't give you this one, written out. They should be written out. It helps for you to remember them and better chance of accomplishing them. Doable, challenging, and then you review them regularly. So all of those good goal characteristics. Blue whale divine designs, I'm going to ask you about those, and you would have gotten those from the blue whale video you saw last night. I'm going to slow down a little bit. So in your journal, you're going to put down right here in this section, blue whale, and then also in the divine design section of your journal. What are the major divine design features of the blue whale? It has a sleek, tapered body, so it can knife through the water. Fins for guidance, for changing direction, fins. Tail flukes for pushing it through the water. Baleen for filtering food that's trapped in their mouth, filtering the water out and keeping the food behind. Blowholes on top, not an accident, the way Jesus designed them. And the instinct to know what to do, anything that it does, where to go, what to eat, all of that. I've already said most of the precip that falls that ends up in the lakes is snow. So anyway, all of that. Now, some new information. So I need to write myself a little note. Some new information. What happens to the water that's in those lakes? It's awful, dirty. So it's got sediment in it. It's got all kinds of stuff in it. Floating logs. It's got fish in it and bacteria and algae. So are we drinking all that? No. But we're drinking water that used to be in those lakes. So what happens to it? Well, it's released from the lakes, doors in the dam, release the water into canals. I'm going to ask you this, into canals. When I first came to the valley, I saw these canals running everywhere, all over the valley, and I go, what is this? And soon find out, well, the water that's up in the lakes is released into these canals so it can flow to the water treatment plants. So it ends up in the water treatment plants. And what happens to it in the water treatment plants? Well, there, the bacteria, first of all, it's filtered. So all the mud and sediment is removed. So it's filtered. The bacteria is killed with chlorine, killed off. Bad taste is removed. They have ways of doing that. And after it's all cleaned up at the water treatment plant, so you want to put that down, that I've got WTP for water treatment plant. At the water treatment plant, after it's cleaned up, it's released into underground water pipes and eventually makes its way underground all over the valley and into the water in our house. And there we use it for drinking, showers, washing things, dishes, etc. So it comes from the lakes originally, starts out. Now, if I ask you this question, listen carefully to this. what is the ultimate place that water that we drink or use in our house, where did it start out as in most cases? Either the Pacific Ocean or the Gulf of Mexico. But most likely, more often than not, the Pacific Ocean. And then it gets evaporated, blown over Arizona, falls as snow. Then it runs off into the lakes, through the canals to the water treatment plant, cleaned up, pumped underground to our houses. Anyway, no charge on all of that. Now I have one other thing that I want to do. We started this, so we're going to have to do this kind of quickly. So these are the Phoenix Lake levels. Now I'm going to give you these lake levels, so find this spot where you started to write this information. So we're going to complete this chart data today. So write quickly. And here it is. So here's what you need to set up. We've already done, I think, 10-1-18. So skip a line down on your chart and then put 11-1-18, 12-1-18 in the margin. So 10-1-18 in the margin under date, 11-1-18, 12-1-18, 1-1-19, 2-1-19. You're skipping lines, huh? 3-1-19, 4-1-19, April 1st, 2019. 5-1-19, May 1st. 6-1-19, 7-1-19, and then 8-1-19. And we're going to stop with this amount of data today. Now I'm going to give this to you. So you've got RL over at the top, RL, you can see that I think, RL, and then TL for total lakes. So I'm going to give you that data. I'm going to give you the RL side first. No, I won't. I'll give you, shouldn't have said that. I'm going to give you RL and then TL for each date. All right, to recap, 10-1-18. RL, that's Roosevelt Lake, had 38% full of water. It was 46, all the lakes were 46% full. Okay, so 10-1-18, Roosevelt Lake was 38% full. The total lakes, all the reservoirs were 46% full. Now 11-1, I'll go slowly. 11-1-18. You've skipped a line right under 10-1-18. Roosevelt Lake was 39%. Up 1, must have had a little bit of rain or snow. And then the TLs for 11-1 was 47%. December 1st, RL 39%. Roosevelt was 39%. Holding steady. The total lakes were 47%. Holding steady. That was December 1st, 2018. Now, January 1st, right here, January 1st, 2019, Roosevelt now was up to 40% full. And all the lakes, the total lakes, were 47%, holding steady at 47. And then February 1st, 2-1-18, Roosevelt Lake 41%, the total lakes 49%. Perhaps Mr. Gilbert can give this to you afterwards if you missed something. And now March 1st, 2019, Roosevelt Lake was 52% full. Ooh, something must have happened. Yeah. The total lakes were 64% on March 1st. On April 1st, for 1-19, Roosevelt Lake, right there, 71% full. And the total lakes, 79. Something must have happened between March 1st and April 1st. Yeah. May 1st, Roosevelt Lake, 76. 76% full. Total lakes, 81%. 3 months left for today. 6/1, 2019, June 1st, in other words. You can just write 19 down. Put a little comma in there, stands for 20. So June 1st, 2019, 78% Roosevelt Lake. And all the lakes, the total lakes, were 80%. On July 1st, Roosevelt Lake, 76%. Little change, what's happening? It's July 1st, 76%. Total lakes, 77% on July 1st. And then the last one, this would be 1 year ago, August 1st, 1 year ago. 8/1/2019, 72%. And the total lakes were 74. Catch up anything you missed there? Okay, nice job. That's tough to get that data. If you didn't get it all, there'll be several ways for you to get it. Now I had one last thing I wanted to tell you besides make sure that you review that you triple R. If you've got a leisure book, like a library book, one that you're reading for fun on your own, not one that you were told to read for class, it can't be one you were assigned. It had to be one that you've chosen to read on your own for leisure, for fun. Enjoy. It's enjoyable. So bring that leisure book to class tomorrow. You'll be glad you did. So bring it. It's got to be one that you really are reading. It can't be one that you picked up in your bedroom and blow the dust off of it. It's been sitting there 4 years. Doesn't work for me. It's got to be one you're actively reading right now. So bring that to class tomorrow. That would be great. And then one last thing. I think I've got this somewhere. Yeah, I do. So here it is. Where is that? Ah, yes. You remember the other day I told you about a bunch of, a bunch of cumulonimbus clouds, a whole line of them formed over Iowa, and it was called, I don't know how to pronounce this, derecho, not sure how you pronounce that. There it is. Derecho. This is worth 5 points. If you'll look up derecho, you've got to do two things. If you look it up, and on a sheet of paper, maybe it's the same paper you're using for Jupiter, but you might have to wait around for that for Jupiter because of cloudy nights. So anyway, on a sheet of paper, write down this word and what the definition is. What did you find out? What is that, a derecho? So give me a definition, and then click on images on Google and look at several pictures, actual pictures of derechos. They are pretty ominous. Have a look at them and just see what they look like. Pretty impressive. I'm glad we haven't got one right now approaching Phoenix. So anyway, gather a little bit of data on it, put the data on that sheet. Again, name, date, period, upper right-hand corner. And then your parents' initials that you actually, did the research on your own, and then your initials. That you actually did it, that you looked it up on your own. I want you to do it on your own. Do a little research on your own, little mini research. Okay. Triple R tonight. and you'll be right, as they say in Australia. Things will be good. So see you tomorrow. Have the test, written test ready for you tomorrow. So good night to you. Bye.